All killers are boring. Just delete Dead by Daylight. Hello guys, welcome to another commentary video with the Dead by Daylight. Today I want to ask the question, are killers actually boring, or do they just not have a high skill gap? It seems like these things don't seem to have any relation to them, but I really want to I want to put some things in context to make you realize that, maybe it's not the problem that these killers are boring. Maybe it's the problem that the boring things that they do take no skill to do, so it feels super underwhelming to fight them. Let's take a character like Nurse. You don't hear a lot of people complain about Nurse as a character. It's very few and far between. And the reason is because blinking with Nurse is incredibly difficult and incredibly disorienting. So you don't hear a lot of people saying that she's super annoying to fight and she's super terrible to fight, because the person on the other end has to put a lot of time and hours into Nurse to be able to play them efficiently. So the things that they are doing, despite being inherently super oppressive and super annoying, like if you gave any other killer the ability to phase through a wall at will, and it was super easy, there would never be a bigger outcry in this game to delete somebody if it just was super easy to phase through a wall and hit somebody. There was a killer that could just walk up to a wall and just M1 and hit them through it. That killer would be gone immediately. But because Nurse takes so much time and effort to be able to do these things, and it's really difficult, people don't give her a lot of hard time. Same thing with a character like let's do an examination here. So Nemesis is someone that has recently been put under the boring category. Like, we now call him boring, and like, oh, I don't like Nemesis, he's so boring. Yeah, that's something we say about Nemesis now, right? We hate boring, and we hate him. He's a boring character now. Nemesis is very similar in some ways to Huntress, right? Because they can both hit over pallets in that regard. So why do people not hate Huntress but hate Nemesis? Huntress, when you're at a tile, you have to ready up your hatchet, and that makes a very, very loud noise. The tentacle spurt thing that Nemesis does isn't very that loud, honestly, if we're being frank here. So Huntress lifts her hatchet, right? And that gives you a lot of time as the survivor to react. So you can either, fake at the pallet, or try to go around the pallet, or drop it and try to crouch right away. There's a lot of things you can do in response to what the Huntress does. And the Huntress, when they throw it, they may miss. They may hit, if you duck right after you drop the pallet, she may just hit the pallet. If you don't drop it all and you just keep running, you'll probably make it around the corner before the hatchet flies. There's a lot of ways to play that, both as the Huntress player and as the survivor player. And you got to take into account knowledge of what each other has done previously in the match to try and get their read on what to do. So there's a lot of thought and skill that goes into that tiny little interaction, right? So here's what happens when Nemesis reaches that pallet. He readies his tentacle. So here's what happens in that scenario. If you try to run around the corner, you're probably going to get hit by the tentacle, which may be an injure if you already are infected, but at least it's a free infect. If you drop the pallet, you get hit over the pallet, so that's a free infect or injure. Or he misses you and hits the pallet, and that destroys the pallet instantly, and he can move while the pallet's being destroyed, so he's not losing as much distance as somebody else. The problem with that being is that whereas Huntress, you have to aim, and we talked about all that stuff you got to do. You got to get the hard read, you got to ready up correctly, you got to read the survivor correctly. Nemesis doesn't really do any of that. He just kind of readies his M2 and kind of just throws it, right? There's not a lot of intense mind games or reads or anything. Even if you totally mess up, you're still going to get the pallet. You're still going to destroy the pallet and get out of there super easily. There's Nemesis, just in the same scenario as Huntress, does not take as much effort to do these things, right? He just doesn't. And I think that's where a lot of people get upset. People aren't really upset that Nemesis can hit you over pallets because, Huntress can hit you over pallets. But Huntress, it takes a lot to do that. It takes a lot of, it takes a hard read. It takes mind games. It takes knowing what the survivor wants. There's just a lot that goes into that. So people don't give Huntresses a hard time typically. Now, there's the annoying part with the fridge hurt boxes and server side and stuff. But when the game's working perfectly, people don't give Huntresses a hard time because it takes a lot to hit somebody over a pallet or hit somebody that is going to run by a window last second. But that's not the case with Nemesis. That's not the case. And we could look at that like we talked about Nurse earlier, like Nurse versus Spirit. It's not that like people like Spirit does a lot of the similar things that Nurse does. We're having like super crazy map mobility and winning really easily at tiles. But like Nurse, you know, getting the hard read, blinking the correct distance, and swinging at the right time. There's a lot of steps that go into doing that as Nurse. Spirit, the tile drops. You literally stand still. you literally just stand still. You literally don't have to do a single thing as Spirit, and you'll probably win the title or win the tile. And you wonder why this character is hated. Like, these other characters don't get the hate because it takes so much effort for them to do this. Whereas you'll play a different character, which is like the Fisher-Price's, you know, version of that character. It's the Lego to the Mega Blocks of that character. And they're just doing similar things with, like, significantly less effort, and it just feels bad. It just feels bad. It feels like they're not trying, and when they're beating you, when they're not trying, the game does not feel satisfying. So I would urge you to kind of like shift, I guess, your language when you're referring to these characters. It's not that they're boring. It's just that they are lower skill. They have a lower skill cap. So therefore, the things that they do in the game are a lot less rewarding on both sides, whether you're getting hit by it or you're doing it. It's because it takes less effort to do, so it does not feel as satisfying. It's not that they're boring. It's just that like they're not satisfying, which is like entirely different. They're too easy, which is entirely different. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about that because I don't think a lot of people like frame it that way. I think they're just like, I'm immediately not having fun, and I need to let you guys know that I'm not having fun. And it's like a little bit more in depth than that. It's a little bit more in depth. It's more about like the fact that they just kind of like when OP things happen in the game, depending on when they happen, if they happen within the hands of a character that is, you know, that takes a lot of effort to make that OP thing happen versus somebody who doesn't, that's usually the line. So I want to pay more attention to that line and stop saying just everything is flatline boring. It's like, are they boring because they're easy? That's the question I want to pose. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this video, and hopefully you like my commentary videos. You know, if you like them, there's a way to like them. And if you really, really like my videos, think about staying around for a while and subbing, friendo. Otherwise, I will see you in the next YouTube video or on Twitch. And if I don't see you there, friends, I'll see you when I see you, buds. Goodbye.